Good morning. Do you love that song or what? Show me your ways. Much as we're singing that and hoping for that, he wants you to know his ways. And I'm so glad that you found your way here to Foundation Church today. And we welcome you here. Today is my 111th birthday. Actually, that's Bilbo Baggins at the Shire. But anyway, I am 60 today, and today is my birthday, and so thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I've been thinking a bit about turning 60 and what this next decade is going to be like, and I've been looking at it pretty optimistically so far. And so I get up this morning, the alarm went off, and I was in a coma, and I came out of that coma, and I started getting ready, and I just was in a fog all morning long. I'm still a bit in a fog. So if you're looking at him like he's looking a little foggy up there, it's because I am in a fog. So anyway, but I get ready and I get in my car and I drive out here and I'm praying. It's really quiet and dark at that time of the morning. Nobody's out, and I'm driving up here and I'm praying and thanking the Lord and praising the Lord and thinking about being 60 today and all that kind of stuff. And as I generally do, I pull in the parking lot and I go back there to my parking spot and I put it in park and I get out and I open the back door to get my book bag out. And my book bag is still at home. I live about 15 minutes from here. Now, I did get my wife's coffee cup out this morning, didn't I, babe? Got her coffee cup, the spoon, the creamer, the sugar, and I left my bag at the house. And I thought, boy, if this is an omen of how the 60s are going to be. Here I go again. Going down the only road I've ever known, right? Like a drifter. No, wait. That's not today. That's something else. I read recently about a survey of 50 people that were 95 years old or older, which is pretty incredible in itself. But the survey of this group of people, they asked this question: what would you do? They asked all these people, what would you do if you had your life to live over again? What would you do different? And these people gave three answers basically that sort of was a consensus of that question, and here they are. And this is the first thing on your outline. They asked that question, and what they said was, if I had my life to live over again, this is what I would do. I would risk more. That goes in your first blank. I would risk more. Second, I would reflect more. And third, I would do more things that would live on after they die. So they would risk more, they would reflect more, and they would basically take more chances. Made me think about a quote by Mark Batterson, and he said in his book, quit living as if the purpose of life is to arrive safely at death. I suspect the people that took the survey, the 95-plus-year-old people, would agree with Batterson's statement there. And my question to you this morning as we get started, and those of you that are watching online, welcome, by the way. How does that statement strike you? Quit living as if the purpose of life is to arrive safely at death. And here's our question to consider this morning, and it's on your outline as well. What would be the very best strategy for you to make your one life on earth count for eternity? That's a question worth answering, I think, especially considering we have one shot at it down here. And so I know we don't have a lot of time this morning, so I want to cut right to the chase if I can. And I want to kind of lay this out for you. Here's what God says in his word about life. First of all, do you believe in God? Let's just get that off the table. That's kind of weak. Do you believe in God this morning? Yeah, he believes in you, by the way. And so what does he say? Here's the essence of what he says. The whole Bible basically says this: he created everything there is. And because he created everything, everything belongs to him. And he puts people made in his likeness and image on the earth for a little short period of time to run their race or live their life. And he gives them gifts, and he gives them opportunities, and he gives them abilities, the kinds of things Rob was talking about in his giving talk just a couple of moments ago. And he gives those things to us to enjoy and also to manage or steward for his glory. That's basically what life is about. You say, man, I don't know. That's not how I see it, or that's not what I think. I'm just saying that's what God says, and God ought to know because he put it all in motion, right? So here's my question to you this morning. If we were going to live our lives, if we actually believe that, the writer of Hebrews, and we touched on this last week, I want to pick it up there again today. He basically talks about living your life as a metaphor of running a race. And so here's what he says in Hebrews chapter 12 in the Bible, in the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, he wrote these words. He said, therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And we talked last week about there being 6 plural pronouns in one verse, and it's a very collective idea that we all are running our race together. None of us are running alone. But he talks about this great cloud of witnesses, and we said last week that refers to the saints that he wrote about in the previous chapter, Hebrews chapter 11. And they ran their race. They lived their life by faith. And they lived by everyday faith. And then sometimes, upon occasion, God called them to express great faith in him. And then they did, and God came through for them. And so they ran their race. And I was thinking about the people in Hebrews 11. I think they would concur with the 95-plus-year-old people that said, if I had it to do over again, I'd risk more. And I'd reflect more. And I'd do more things that would live on past my time on the earth. And the evidence of that has happened is the fact that here we are in the 21st century talking about what they did long ago and how they lived their lives by faith. And so now it's our turn. They've ran their race by faith. And the writer of Hebrews, the very next thing he says, let us. It's an invitation, basically. It's an invitation for us. He says, let us now run our race. It's a choice that you have to make. And he said, lay aside every encumbrance. What is an encumbrance, by the way? It's a distraction. That's an example of an encumbrance. It's something that slows you down, something that keeps you from running your best race. I don't know if you know this or not, but the ancient Greeks, when they ran their race, they stripped off their clothing and they ran their race. So from this day forward at Foundation Church, we have a new rule about running around here. Just kidding. Heaven forbid. Oh, I know. No, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, so an encumbrance is anything that slows you down from running your race. Let's get real practical here. Let's talk about what encumbrances are. Now, an encumbrance is not a sin. It's not necessarily a sin. It's just something that we do that slows us down. So give me some examples of encumbrances in people running their race. Not you. Let's don't talk about you. Let's talk about other people, right? What are some encumbrances that other people have in running their race by faith? Can you think of anything? Golly, let me help you. How about TV? TV. Just watching, just endlessly, hour upon hour, watching TV, especially with no boundaries. Like you just turn it on and it's just on and on and on. That's one thing. How about social media? Facebook, yeah, social media, Facebook. What about that? Could that be an encumbrance? The average person checks his or her phone 96 times a day and spends 3 hours and 45 minutes on average on the phone per day. Study of millennials shows that millennials, it's twice that. Not picking on the millennials, I'm just telling you that's what the surveys are showing. We're talking about encumbrances, things that slow you down. How about gaming? I read about a study called The Demise of Guys. The Demise of Guys, and the study showed that the average guy spends 10,000 hours gaming by the time he's 21. 10,000 hours. What could you do with 10,000 hours? I can tell you what you can't do is you can't get it back once it's gone. How about shopping? Absolutely. The time, the attention, the money, the energy, those kinds of things. Now, shopping's not, again, these are encumbrances. These can be encumbrances. It's not a sin to shop necessarily, but unless it becomes something that's just slowing you down and it's occupying your mind and your heart. How about relationships? And you're like, exactly, this person I'm married to. No, that's not what I'm not talking about healthy relationships like your husband, your wife, your kids, and whatever. I'm talking about the unhealthy relationships that you may find yourself involved in. You may have somebody that's slowing you down, somebody that's keeping you from living your best life and running your best race, right? How many of you have heard the saying, this is old, that if you want to soar with eagles, you can't what? Run with turkeys, right? And so here's the thing, this is what you're going to find. Studies show, not Scott's opinion, studies show that you basically are like the 5 to 10 people that you spend the most time with. Whoever you're spending time with, That's who you're becoming. And so I really hope, and God's word teaches, and science shows that if you I hope you like who you're with who you're running with, because that's who you're turning out to be. John Mark Comer said it this way: what you give your attention to is the person that you become. Good or bad, what you give your attention to is the person that you become. Can a church have encumbrances? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. There's all kinds of things we could say, but one of those might be that maybe that we're missing the point. Sometimes churches can miss the point. In other words, we basically do good things at the expense of the best things, right? Our building is second to none. Our worship services are this. Our doctrine is that. Our polity is this. Our lawn is incredible. Our, whatever. And those are all good things. But the gospel of Jesus Christ is the main thing. You must keep the main thing the main thing. Otherwise, we get into encumbrances and they slow us down. And this is why vision is so important. This is why you have to know where you're going. And God has shown us very clearly that He wants to build Foundation Church on the foundation of His Son, Jesus Christ. Life on the rock. We started down that path this past January, and we're going to continue to do that as time goes on. We're going to build everything on Jesus Christ, right? So that's encumbrances. What about sin? He says, and also you got to lay aside the sin which so easily entangles us. Now, are there any sins, not you, but somebody else might struggle with that slows them down in running their best race for God? Anything? I'm sorry? Smoking. Okay, good. What else? I'm sorry? People pleasing. Yes. Worry. How about this? This is probably nobody in this room, nobody watching online, but this, I've heard this slows some people down. Pornography. Does that slow anybody down? Greed. That slow anybody down? Yeah. Lying. Would that slow anybody down? Laziness. Right? What else? Pride. Self. I don't want to bring you down. I'm just saying, here's what God's word teaches. There are things that we tolerate in our lives that are encumbrances that slow us down. There are things that we tolerate in our lives that we know are wrong, and those are sins, and they're keeping us from living by faith. They're keeping us from running the best race that God set out for us to race. And it's interesting that the admonition for both encumbrances and sin is basically the same, and it's what? Lay aside or set it down, or stop doing that, basically. And you might say to yourself, Scott, that's easy for you to say up there on the stage. And it is. It's not hard for me to say what the Bible says. This is not hard. But most of us living in the real world, struggling with the thing or things that you're actually struggling with, you say to yourself when you hear this, same thing I say to myself, and that is, but I really like fill in the blank. And I've been doing that for so long. And I love that dopamine hit that I get and you fill in the blank, whatever that is. And so for you, thinking about changing is kind of like, no, not going to do it. Unless, why would you even consider setting aside an encumbrance? Why would you even think about setting aside a sin that's slowing you down? And it's on your outline. It's the very next thing. And this is very important that you and I get this. The key is this: you must have a vision of and belief in something or someone greater than your encumbrance or your sin. You must have a vision of and belief in something or someone greater than your encumbrance or sin. We're talking about a trade. We're talking about a trade here, right? And that's the essence of the invitation. And the question is, what do you want most? Because whatever you want the most is the thing that you're going to pursue, and what you pursue the most is probably what you're going to get. God Himself will not stand in the way of you getting what it is that you want if you want it bad enough. Read your Bible. Romans chapter 1 is extremely clear in that chapter, and many others. So there's some, and like this young lady right here, and I'm not picking on you, but you're on the front row, and so am I. I'm on this front row, you're on that one. But so many in our church have accepted Christ recently, and there are others on their way. And for those of you that have accepted Christ maybe recently, maybe you say to yourself, well, I said that prayer and I've begun my race, and that is good, but now what? What's next? What's next in your life? It's going to take something to make it to the finish line. And it's the very next thing that the writer says in Hebrews. And here's what he says. If you're going to run your race, he says, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. What is endurance? Patience, it's perseverance, it's steadfastness, it's where you don't quit. You don't give up. Doesn't mean you run without mistake. I never make a mistake. I never fail. No, that's not what it's saying. But you run with endurance. You don't give up. It's like Jesus said, put your hands on the plow and don't let go of the plow. Continue all the way. A long obedience in the same direction it's sometimes referred to. But it's basically where you keep going no matter what happens. And it's interesting, the people in Hebrews 11, I want to show you something. I didn't show you this if you were here last week. I want to save it for today. And it's talking about the people who ran their race by faith. So in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 13, it says this, all of these died in faith without receiving the promises. But having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. I've got that underlined in my Bible. And here's the reason why. This is very important. This last phrase here, they were strangers and exiles on the earth. They confessed that, meaning they admitted it. They agreed with the fact that they were exiles and strangers, aliens on the planet. Now, we're not talking about aliens like from another planet and visiting our planet. What he's saying is the people that ran their race by faith, lived their lives by faith, understood that this life is not all there is. This world is not all there is. The time that you have down here is going to go by like that. It's going to go so fast. It'll make your head swim, my mom used to say. It goes by very, very fast. And here's the thing. There are times in life where you're just like things are going and you're just kind of clicking along, and then one day you're 10 and then you're 20 and then you're 60 and then it's over. It's just how, it just goes, doesn't it, Tanya? It just goes very, very, very fast. And I know when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're like, nah, not me. But I'm telling you, just keep living and you'll see that. And these people live their lives, as we said earlier, by everyday faith, right? And then occasionally they had to express great faith in their trust in God. But they saw that this is not all there is. They realized there was something better than this, a better country. And that's what they're referring to. It says, for those who say such things, make it clear that they are seeking a country not of their own. And this is what I want you to see. Pay attention, verse 15. And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. What does that mean? It means that as they were running their race by faith, if they ever got to the point where they decided the juice was not worth the squeeze, they could do what? Quit. They could turn back. They could stop following God by faith. They could say, enough's enough. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm going back. They could have done that, but they didn't do that. And that's why they're in the Bible. That's why we study them and we read about them. It's not because they were flawless human beings, but because they ran their race in their time on the earth by faith. They risked more. They reflected a lot, I'm sure. Right? They didn't have a lot of distractions to distract them like we do, but they reflected and they lived their life in such a way that they have done things that have outlived them. And here's what I want to say to you this morning, and I believe God wants to say this to you. He will not make you run your race. He invites you. He includes you. He'll give you everything you need for life and godliness, won't he, Mike? But he will not run your race for you. He will not decide for you. It is up to you to run your race. How do you run with endurance? How do you start and run and finish well? The very next phrase, he says, fixing your eyes on Jesus. It's a collective race. You're not running by yourself. This is why we have life groups. This is why we have teams. This is why you see different people on the stage singing. This is why Rob and I trade out. We lead and serve and preach and pray, and we do these. We share because this race is collective. We're running together, right? Fixing our eyes on Jesus. How do I fix my eyes? How do you fix your eyes on somebody you can't see? By faith. The assurance of things hoped for. I can't see it. I can't touch it. I can't feel it, I can't hear it, I can't smell it, but I'm sure it's true. That's what faith is. That's what builds your hope. That's what these people had. That's how they ran their race, in hope, in faith, believing, trusting. How do you get that every day? How does this happen in your life? Do you pray a prayer one time and God just sort of puts it on you and now you got faith from there on? And that's all you need? Is it a one and done kind of thing? The way that you get faith is day by day you read God's word. You see what he says. If you're going to fix your eyes on Jesus, you kind of got to be looking for him, and this is where you find him. He's found in the pages of his word, and he speaks to you, and he talks to you, and he comforts you, and he loves you, and he encourages you, and he helps you because he's in love with you. And you're the only reason, listen, the only reason you exist is because of him. He decided you. So if you got a low self-esteem, and most people do, and if you're like, man, I'm just not worth anything, and nobody loves me, and nobody cares, and I suck, and all that stuff, then you don't believe what this says about you, or you don't know what it says about you. You don't know about the promises. You don't know about the incredible things that he gives you and loves you and how much he wants to do in your life. But it doesn't happen just by accident. You trust him. You follow him. You learn to love him. And he loves you. And you get to know him through his Bible. And you read day by day, decision by decision, and it changes the way you think, the way you see life, the way you see people, the way you see yourself, your circumstances. He speaks truth. He shows you reality. And you start thinking and you start seeing more from his perspective, which is the truth. And it changes the way you think. It changes the way you make decisions. It changes the way you feel. And you find yourself living by faith in a God you can't see, but you know. Because he's showing you. He's showing you his ways. You ask him, you sing, show me your ways. He says, okay. Happy to. Here they are. This is why we're reading through the New Testament in 2024. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they're known as the Gospels. They're the stories, the account, different people's accounts of the life and times of Jesus. And so if we're going to know his ways, and he's going to show us his ways, then this is where we're going to find them. They're in the book. Guess what we're going to do in 2025? You're not going to believe this. Crazy. We're going to read the Gospels. We're going to get to know Jesus so we can learn to love him, so that we will choose to follow him, so we will run our race for the short period of time that we're on the earth. How you doing so far? Is this okay? So, we're all the way to verse 2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. What does that mean? He begins your faith, he takes you all the way to the end. A to Z, Jesus is the key. Say that with me. A to Z, Jesus is the key. He absolutely is. That's why we're reading the Bible together. That's why we're reading the Gospels, right? And then it says here, who for the joy set before him. What joy is that referring to? It's the joy he had in fulfilling his Father's plan. It's the joy he had in the salvation of humanity, which is why he came. The joy he had was you. You are the joy that he had as he sacrificed himself on the cross. Nuh-uh. Read it, study it, think about it, ask him, watch and see what he says to you. He is in love with you. And nobody can make him be in love with you. He chooses to be in love with you and you. Yes, he does. Look at this. It says, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. What does that mean? He didn't run from it. He could have. He could have said, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm not, just too much. Cost too much, too painful. I do not want this. And so he could have at any time tapped out and said, no, I'm not going through this. But he endured the cross. He moved toward it, and he went through it. And this is what this says to me about my race, and this is what maybe it says to you about your race. And the race is this, the truth is this. Your race is going to include some pain. Your race is going to include some suffering. Your race is going to include some loss and some sorrow. You cannot get through life without it. You can go through life without Jesus, you can suffer without Jesus, or you can suffer with Jesus. It's up to you. And because suffering and pain and sorrow and disappointment can be so debilitating, he wants you to know that he's there for you, that he loves you, and he can heal you, and he can comfort you, and he can help you. That's what he does, right? And so it's very important. Then it says here, very closely related to that, despising the shame. I don't know what all that means, but I think it means maybe this, that it was not an easy thing for him to do. He despised the shame of the cross. There was no easy way around. There was no workaround, right? There's no way of dressing this up and making it something that it wasn't. And that's the way it's going to be in your life. There are things that are going to happen to you in your life. You're going to cause some of those things. You have caused some of those things. And other people are going to cause certain things to happen in your life where you are going to suffer. You are going to be disappointed. You are going to experience pain and sorrow. Those things are absolutely going to happen, despising the shame. And there's no way of dressing that up. There's no way of making that better than it is. And I could list all kinds of things: abortion, rape, addiction, bankruptcy. There's just so many things that happen in life, and there's no way to explain them away. There's no easy way around it. Which is why Jesus says, I really want you to trust in me, because I know what you've been through. I know where you've come from. And I know where you're headed, and I know what's next. And I've come to give you life, abundant, healthy, joyful, not easy. I don't read easy, and I've never read easy. The only easy I read in there is Jesus' yoke. That's the only easy I've read. We'll talk about that next week. But it's not easy. And he knows that, which is all the more reason he says, trust me. Because I love you, and I understand everything there is about life, and I understand everything there is about your life, and I can help you. But you got to trust me by faith. Finally, Jesus says in verse 3, or the writer of Hebrews says in verse 3, consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself. There's the word endured for the third time in 3 verses. You getting the idea that it's probably going to take some stick-to-itiveness to make this thing work out all the way to the finish line. Consider the cost, in other words. Why consider the hostility? It's not just a passing thought. It's not, oh, poor Jesus, I hate that for him. Gosh, he went through a lot. Okay, so sad, too bad. What's for lunch? No, consider what he did for you. Consider the cost. Consider the price that he was willing to pay for your salvation. And he tells us why. He says, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. What happens when you lose heart? What happens when you lose heart? You start giving up. And the encumbrances are not so cumbersome anymore. They're more kind of like what you take with you. And you sort of start giving in, and you give out, and you give up, and you lose out. And you start saying, well, you know what, I used to resist that sin, and I'm just tired of resisting it, and so I'm just going to, it's not that bad anyway. And, besides, look at what Pam's doing. Look at what Patrick does, and I'm not as bad as Kathy, and, this and that. And so we rationalize, and we look around, and we compare, and we do all these things. That's what happens when you lose heart, which is why, if you're not going to lose heart, you're going to have to do something, and that is what? Fix your eyes on Jesus. This is not about running your race flawlessly. Only Jesus. He's the only one that ever ran without sin. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. And the people in your life are going to do that because this is a fallen planet. And none of us make it right. None of us are perfect. And so give yourself grace. Stop being hard on yourself. Stop being hard on the people around you and give them grace. Give yourself grace. I'm not saying give yourself an excuse to sin. I'm saying don't be so hard on yourself. Understand that Jesus is the only one that could run the race perfectly. which is why you and I need to have faith on Him, fix our eyes and our hearts on Him. And He'll get us all the way to the finish line because that's exactly what He promises to do. Some of you may be saying to yourself, and some watching online, race? What race? I'm just living my life. I'm just trying to make it through the day and the week. And what do you mean race? This is a metaphor that the Bible uses for living your life by faith. And it starts by trusting Christ as your Savior. If you've never invited Christ to come into your life, here's the reason. Here's how you would do it and why you would do it. First of all, why? Why would you do that? Because God created you in His likeness and image and He loves you. And you have original sin in your life. You have sin, so you sin. Sin separates you from God. Doesn't separate you from His love, separates you from relationship with Him. Sin separates. That's why Jesus came, to come and die on the cross, to pay for your sins, to pay for that thing that separates you from God. So that sin, when you put your faith in what Jesus did on the cross and you believe in His sacrifice for you, you're forgiven of your sins. And Jesus enters your life in the power of the Holy Spirit, and you become born again. You start running your race at that point. So if you've never done that, like this precious little girl right here did just recently, today is the day for you. You may be a senior adult. You may be well-established, highly intelligent, very successful. You may be a total loser in your own eyes. I don't know. But whoever you are, wherever you are, you need Jesus, and He loves you. And you can begin a relationship with Him by simply asking Him to come into your life and save you. So let me lead you in a very simple, short prayer this morning. If you want to invite Christ into your life to save you, pray this prayer to Him. Say, Jesus, I do believe in you. I believe you're God's Son. I believe that you died on the cross, just as your word says, and that your sacrifice on the cross paid for my sins. Thank you. Thank you. Please come into my life this morning and forgive me and help me to start following you, running my race, trusting you. In Jesus' name, amen. In a couple of moments, I want to ask you to take out your connection, or actually, we'll do it now. Take out your connection card, and if you've trusted Christ as your Savior, or you want to, you're like, I got some questions about that, or you want to be baptized, or you want to be in a life group, you want to know more about that, or you have a prayer, any of those things, should be a card in front of you. Write that down, leave it in your seat, or drop it in the bucket or the black box as you go out this morning. And then finally, this is our last thing. For those of you that are believers, you're Christ followers, you're running your race, the bottom of the handout is our invitation, and it says this: have you begun running your race? That's what we just got through talking about. Are you running with anyone else? If you look at those verses we looked at this morning, they're plural pronouns all the way till you get down to the very end, and it says that, so, fix your eyes on Jesus so you won't lose heart in running your race. We're running together, but I'm not running your race, and you're not running my race. We're running individually together. Does that make sense? And so, who are you running with? You're going to need somebody. You need somebody. Let us help you with that. And then finally, these last two things, and then we're going to have just a time to think about it. The questions are these: what encumbrance, not a sin, maybe a good thing, but what encumbrance is slowing you down in your race? And then the final question is, what sin is there in your life that you've just kind of gone, can't beat them, I guess I'm going to join them. I'm just sort of giving into this, and it's too hard to quit, too hard to stop, whatever. You have to trust God to help you set it down. You've got to make the choice to set it down, whatever it is, and then trust Him to take over, and He will help you beat whatever it is that's plaguing you. So let's just take a moment and let's just think about that. Let's just pray. A moment of silence. What is slowing you down? are you willing to set that aside? With the help of the Holy Spirit, set it aside. Ask for His help. And when the temptation to pick that back up comes around, and it will, say, Lord, help me to leave this down. Set it aside. Trust Him. In just a moment, we're going to open the altar here, and we're going to sing, and our pastors and elders will be here, and our staff to pray with you. So I want to encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to have someone pray with you. Remember, we're running together. Here's the other thing. Maybe you haven't thought about this. Who do you know that needs you to be praying for them? Why not today? Start praying for them or continue praying for them this morning. Father, thank you for our time together. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what you're about to do in Jesus' name.